We're at part 9 of the reproductive system, looking at the female reproductive system on page 1037. We're going to slip back just one page here on 1036 to note the commentary here with regard to the development of follicles in the ovary. This is not a human ovary by any means. This looks like a cat ovary. But the idea here is that at least you're able to see that there are follicles developing. In the female ovary, it looks actually, a human female ovary, it looks quite different because there's groupings of them that develop together and then produce enough hormone. So the format is the same as formats that were, how shall I say, evolved for animals that are four-legged. One of the problems with the human is that we are not four-legged. And a four-legged animal, let me just sort of make clear here, has the shoulder girdle as the major weight-bearing device. And their pelvic girdle in a four-legged animal, take a look at your cat or your dog, or check out particularly like a bison or something like this. This is the least amount of weight-bearing, where for us, we are the erect species and we are weight-bearing here, which means that our pelvis is, how shall I say, more put upon and enclosed in certain ways and bearing the weight of the body and cannot open in the way that a four-legged animal can pass, like a cat can pass 3, 4, 5 kittens in a litter. We're very fortunate to actually just get one newborn individual out from there, right? And so we generally, even though we're using the same format here of many follicles, we're using it for the purpose of creating enough estrogen and progesterone and not for the purpose of creating litters of children. Okay, there is the exception to the rule where we have quadruplets or quintuplets, but that would be rare and the exception and not the general format. Within these surrounding tissues of the follicle, we have two sets of cells that develop, two populations. One is called the Granulosa cells. They are the first to form, and they form, or they, under the influence of LH, they produce estrogens of various kinds, and they essentially prime the tissues of the body with those estrogens. And then later, after ovulation, there is another set of cells that become quite prevalent, or actually before ovulation, on the way to ovulation. These are significant after ovulation because of the LH spike, but they're present before ovulation, but they're just not producing vast amounts of what their product is, which is progesterone, also under the influence of LH. Both of these molecules, when produced, will feed back negatively, except for estrogen at a certain moment. Estrogen, when it is really in high concentration, has a strangely positive feedback result rather than negative. So we'll see that switch from negative feedback to positive feedback of estrogen. So there's some very unique features which, if you, as a biochemical, biologist working on endocrine systems, if you can figure out what's going on with that, you'll be, and be able to articulate it well, you'll be receiving lots of, how shall I say, prizes in your time. So here we have the anterior view here of this wonderful system here. We have the uterus. We have a portion of the vaginal passageway is present. You can see how the vagina meets the cervical uterus right here. We have the cervical canal. We have the outer os here, os meaning opening or mouth, the outer external os. We have the internal os right here, internal os. That space in between is referred to as the canal. Oftentimes it's secured by a mucus plug to make it secure inside here. At other times it's open to outward flow and inward flow. So there's a variety of situations that we'll be looking for. There's a lot of smooth muscle within this organ. It also has this unusual shape. I mentioned to you before that there are three structures in each corner here. So assuming that the egg is going to be coming down this way, this is the place of fertilization. I've made that note here, place of fertilization of the egg. Here is the ovary. Let's take a look here. We have an oviduct. We have a ovarian ligament. We have a round ligament. There's a 1, 2, 3 there. Again, this round ligament is a vestigial aspect and previously a part of the development for fetal development. Here's the fundus, referred to as the fundus of the uterus. Those who have had children have had this enlargement of the uterus with the development of the child in the placenta, and then after birth this fundus is something that one can palpate and massage and increase contraction with one's own self-massage. Very helpful to get contraction then of the uterus and return of the uterus to its prior size. Also, the structures here are maintained in their location with this broad, this is called the broad ligament. There's a few different parts of the broad ligament here. The mesosalpinx, the mesovarian, and the mesometrium layers. So these are multiple layers of the broad ligament. You can sort of think of them as sort of like being these sheets of plastic that are sort of heat sealed together and holding everybody in their correct both location and position. We have a suspensory ligament to make sure that everything is drawn properly off in this direction. And so the position of the oviduct and the fimbriae here is just right for the uptake of the egg during the time of ovulation. Okay, so that's our situation with regard to that. And let's move on over here. We'll take a look here at the ovarian, not the ovarian, the uterine endometrium. There's two different stages. They're only really depicting here the latter stage, but there is an earlier stage in which menses has taken place, and there is a regrowth early on in the monthly cycle. So this is the myometrium here. This is just pure muscle. Over here we have a layer which represents the stratum basale, which is the layer that one keeps even during exfoliation of this outer layer, which is the stratum functionalis. We come over here and we look at those equivalent situations here in the artistic drawing. Here is a smooth muscle area. Here is the muscle, or not the muscle, the endometrium that's kept, which is the stratum basale. And then out here we have this, what's called the functional endometrium. And the idea here is that, first of all, there's going to be a quick development after menses of this portion here. This is the part that's kept. And when this is fully developed, matured, and differentiated, we're at that point just after ovulation, so that within a week of ovulation, if there is a fertilized egg, there is the full development of these glands. I have here this little term, lunabars. There's little glycoprotein tasty treats, as it were, sort of little vending machine treats that come out here, so that the fertilized embryo is checking out the food supply and will hopefully implant in some of the sweetest spot, hopefully, that is high in the endometrium that avoids ectopic pregnancy. So that's the idea here. I'll come back to this in just a moment.